Welcome back. Welcome back. Do be seated. Once again, if you were turning your attention to advanced technology to see what was happening outside of this little bubble of future technology, then do turn your devices to the off or silent or airplane mode. And set aside all of those past habitual thoughts. One last swallow on the coffee, the Madeleine, the cowboy cookie, the apple. Our next speaker, Dr. Anna Mihalcea, is a board-certified internal medicine physician with postgraduate doctoral degree in pathology. She's practiced internal medicine and geriatrics for the last 19 years in hospital, outpatient, and nursing home settings. She has served both as the medical director for the Geriatric Center of Excellence at Providence Clinic in Panorama and the medical director for the Panorama Nursing Facility in Lacey. Dr. Anna has been the supervising physician of the Mercy Blu program since its inception in January 2018, and she oversees the work that JZ is investigating at the Shiva Blu facility here on our campus. Please welcome Dr. Anna Mihalcea.
Thank you, Mike. Hi there. Greetings, everybody. Greetings, world. Thank you for coming to this extraordinary event on the introduction to light medicine, and thank you, Dr. Matt. Today, we are going to go further into light medicine and what we actually mean by that. First, a little housekeeping item. First, I do not have any conflicts of interest to disclose. And number two, I'd like to tell you that the medical information given here is specific, but it is not intended to diagnose or treat your conditions, and that you should consult your own healthcare provider. The overview over this presentation is light medicine introduction, where the concept came from, and then the scientific background information that will help us understand better to analyze the cases that will be presented and to understand how we're using these new concepts as a new scientific model. Then we will have a case discussion of J.Z. Knight's extraordinary mind manipulating DNA, and then go into the Mercy Blu Room results. So the question is this: what if there could be a new unified theory for medicine? What would that mean in terms of contrasting the current view of medicine, of which I have been trained and I've worked in for the last 20 years? In the current model, spirit and body are mostly seen separate. Healthcare is disjointed. If you have a heart problem, you need to see the cardiologist. If you have a problem with another organ, you see someone else. And in the middle somewhere is a primary care provider who's trying to coordinate it all. Drugs are there to maintain a chronic disease state, but the expectation is not that optimum health is restored, but that forever from here on out you will be maintained on these medication on a day-to-day basis. And that the spiritual self and the causality of disease are largely ignored. So in light medicine, we are looking at a different model. And when I say light medicine, I do not mean the previous use of any type of light, but I mean Ramtha's light medicine, which is a very specific, scientifically based model of reality that gives rise to this new way of seeing medicine. And that says that we are incarnated beings of light in a body, and that this is not our only incarnation, and that there are aspects from potentially other existences that are still influencing us. That our observation bends light into form, or in quantum physics it would say that particles are collapsed into reality. And that our disharmonious attitudes create incoherence and disease in the body. And that we will view healing not just on a mass-to-mass level, like the current model does with maintaining or controlling symptoms through drugs, but we are looking at encompassing attitudes, emotions, the spiritual self, and the physical body, and that addressing the entire spectrum is important in our philosophical and scientific approach. So light medicine, the basis of why it works is what Ramtha has said, is that consciousness and energy upon the brain creates mind, and that mind is what governs DNA. On May 11th, 2018, Ramtha gave a teaching, and he said this, that all things have a light body, and because it's from light that they descend into mass. You are a conglomerate of a neighborhood of diversified light whose harmony is you. If you understood that and you work in light, then you garner information from those elementals that have the highest light value. When those values are then taken into the human biological form, that light enhances the body's mechanism. So he lays out here a foundation. One is understanding that we are light incarnated in a physical body, and that if we understand light values in other elements, we could use those for their medicinal purposes to enhance the light in the body. So we are looking at the Blue Room through the eyes of new and ancient science. And if we observe the Blue Room, then we see an octagonal sacred geometry. We see mirrors that represent matter and antimatter. Ultraviolet blue light, which is in the light spectrum, the frequency of light that is associated with healing, and healing sound. And so there have been great geniuses that have, just like Dr. Matt explained, explored these aspects of frequency. And there's a prophecy from Nikola Tesla, and he said that the day science began to study non-physical phenomena, that it will make more progress in 1 decade than all of the previous centuries of its existence. Nikola Tesla absolutely knew about sacred geometry, and he talked about the number 9. He said that if you only knew the magnificence of the number 3, 6, and 9, you would have the key to the universe. And in this particular drawing, which is one of Nikola Tesla's drawing, as you can see, this as you can see, here's your triad, your square, and it continues in terms of the sacred geometry. And this map is actually thought that he used to build his machines to access zero-point energy. It is said that the mathematical fingerprint of God is the number 9, and that there's been a mathematician by the name of Marco Rodin who showed that the numbers 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8 represent the physical world, and that the numbers 3, 6, and 9 do represent the spiritual world that govern our material reality from the quantum level. And that this mathematics describes what calls vortex mathematics. It is the vortex math number 9 is a recurring number. When you add all of the sides of the Pythagorean shapes within a circle, they all add up to number 9. In quantum physics, in quantum law, the number 3 also occurs, and in 1970, a prominent researcher, Efimov, he described the equations of quantum mechanics, the Borromean rings. And what he was looking at was the behavior in sets of 3 particles, regardless of its size. And he found that whether you have subatomic particles or atomic particles like the proton, the neutron, and the electron, that they come in sets of 3, and from infinitely small to infinitely large, that they are always occurring in the same setting of these number 3s. And what is interesting was that the symbology of this particular law were the Borromean rings that in the 15th century were used to describe the relationship of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and that God is surrounded by the Word, by light and life. So when light is expressed into form, this torus mathematics is reoccurring, and it has been in calculations found that our very universe is the shape of a torus, and it can be described either in this torus form or in the sacred geometry based on triads. So this geometry is everywhere in nature. Whether or not you look at a galaxy or whether or not you look at subatomic particles, the dimensions are not important. The ratios always stay the same. They evolve according to Fibonacci series, and they link the golden mean and pi together. And so in all of nature, we see this code expressed in all of life. There is a mathematician by the name of Stephen Phillips who looked at particularly the Pythagorean forms, or they call them the Platonic solids. And what he looked at was what is called the tree of life, which is a code, and he mathematically decoded it. And if you look here, is what we have are 2 circles, and that within those 2 circles there is the triad, the square, the pentagon, the hexagon, the octagon. So all of sacred geometry is sequentially expressed as matter and then antimatter. So he developed a system in which actually these dots, which are called yods, if you divide these mathematical shapes into triads, you get a number of points. These numbers are a code, and they're a code for very specific things. Number one of the most mysterious numbers seen in physics, it's called the fine structure constant, and it governs the properties of all atoms. Also, string theory, which is a theory alternative to quantum mechanics, that in multiple dimension describes how light strings are bent into form and create reality. So the laws of string theories are encoded in the sacred geometry. The other thing that is encoded are the number of bones in the human skeleton and all of the classical acupuncture points, as well as the codons of messenger RNA and anticodons of transfer RNA. It also describes accurately the instances in the genetic DNA code of stop codons, of anticodons, as well as regular codons. So in essence, this geometrical shape, which the octagon can be deducted from and is part of, is a code for reverse engineering physical matter all the way through the size of the physical body, the bones, the DNA, the actual atomic structure, to its original property of light. It also encodes the names of God, and it is a code for the 7 musical scales. So we have here a mathematics that is extraordinary and that is able to describe and utilize this, this code in order to come up with a different way of thinking about medicine, about health, about healing, about clean energy, about zero-point energy. So if we look at human DNA, we find exactly that geometry, that our DNA is wound in the mathematical formulas of Fibonacci series, and the golden ratio can be found in it. The bonds between DNA, the nucleic acids, as you can see, are also geometrical, pentagons and hexagons. And you all know that if you look at this star over there, which is the symbol of Christ consciousness, which is the pentagon, and that star, which is God, man, God, woman realized, the hexagon, you understand that this geometry is telling us a lot about the divine human, the light being that has descended into mass as a conglomerate of diversified light. So what genius have spoken this mathematical language throughout history? Johannes Kepler in the 15th century has actually described the planetary distances accurately through sacred geometry. And he talked about that if the Earth is a circle, which is the measure of all, you can construct a Pythagorean shape around it, and the circle surrounding that is Mars. And he went on. And these ratios were absolutely exact. And he was able to accurately predict the distances between planets, and he was renowned as a mathematician in his age. Leonardo da Vinci is an extraordinary mathematician, and all of his art is based on sacred geometry and this particular code. This form of advanced mathematics has also been found in crop circles. If you see here, this is the tree of life, which is actually the code for what I showed you earlier, the two circles that are encoding the reverse engineering of matter into light. Here you can see other forms of, over here, this is actually the carbon atom. It's a perfect sphere and a perfect cube, and we'll learn a little bit more about that. We see over here, we see the torus mathematics, and we have in these in these crop circles, this advanced mathematics. I mean, from the Euler's identity, the Mandelbrot sequence, I mean, absolutely extraordinary mathematical equations that are explaining who we are in our origin in this language. I want you to remember this when I speak about the inventors of the Blue Room's brain and what she knows. One of Nikola Tesla's contemporaries was Walter Russell. Walter Russell was not an educated scientist, but an individual who had a spiritual experience of enlightenment, and he was downloaded with extraordinary mathematics, just like Ramachandran was, just like Beethoven heard music in his head. And Walter Russell described a new mathematics of the universe, which was extremely prominent in the last century, and that he shared with other scientists, including Einstein. He described that God is mind, and mind is expressed in light. Mind is a spiritual substance. And the substance of mind is the foundation of all of creation. Spirit is light, and matter is light. They're the same thing. God and matter are one. Spirit and matter are the same substance, and that substance is light. Light is life. The whole of the universe is but one living, breathing, pulsing being. And everything that is of everything else that is. Man is but a complex organization of light units, functioning under the government of that idea of thinking light called man. And there is only one language, and that is light. The alphabet of the language of light is color. And that color in its vibration also has sound. Nikola Tesla spoke about Walter Russell, and he said to him to lock up this cosmic knowledge in a safe for 1,000 years until man is ready for it. Walter Russell accurately predicted, based on the vibration of elements, he predicted the discovery of plutonium. And he thought that he was responsible for the atomic nuclear destruction, and he warned against that. Walter Russell spoke about healing, and he said this, that no information concerning the material body alone, its chemistry and its functioning, heals the body. Life is not the body. Life is spirit, and spirit is still. To heal the body so it can manifest the life of spirit, one must give the unbalanced body the balance of the spirit, and knowledge of light alone can do this. All the information in the world will not heal the body unassisted by the light in him who heals. That is absolutely also the foundation that Ramtha has taught us, that Jay-Z has taught us. So Walter Russell, based on the vibrational structure of of the universe and how he understood that all things occur in ratios. Electrical and magnetic force are in perfect balance at all times. So he developed a way to predict, based on vibrational frequency, the atomic structure of atoms. And so he said that hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen are actually the first lightning spheres. Now, actually, that sentence, the birth of the first lightning spheres, J.Z. Knight gave that. And she absolutely knows this knowledge, and I've heard her use that sentence. So Walter Russell said that all 9 octaves of elements are an unfoldment of carbon. Hydrogen is the prototype of carbon, and oxygen the next generation. But carbon is the only true cube sphere, which is the perfect manifestation from idea into matter. So, as we discussed earlier, the bending light into form, that perfect manifestation of the idea of form is bent into a perfect sphere, which is carbon. All spheres behave like suns. They become radiating as zero-point energy fields. So the cosmic origin of elements, if we look at the universe, then hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen are the most abundant elements in the universe. So you might have heard the saying that we are made of star stuff. Well, of course. The elemental composition of the human body, the primary elements are 65% oxygen, 18% carbon, 10% hydrogen, and 3% nitrogen. So we are the composition of the stars. So when Ramtha discussed to look at the light value of elements and that they can assist the body in healing, he was speaking about a molecule called carbon-60. And what he said on May 18th is, do you know the light value of carbon-60? Look at its light value, study it. How can a particle that looks like the Blue Room with so much light override so much lack in cellular performance? If you take the substance, it is so powerful that it feeds light-starved cells, and taken enough, it renews the vitality of DNA, and that is why it lengthens life. So, in order to look at the light value of an atom, we use spectroscopy. And we can reverse engineer any atom based on the color emission and see what it is. Carbon-60 is number 1 made of this atom that I told you is the perfect idea expressed in matter. Carbon is a perfect sphere, and it's in its crystalline structure a perfect cube. So carbon-60 has 17 pentagons and 20 hexagons. As we have learned is that pentagons and hexagons are also a code for the perfect idea of man, God, woman realized into flesh. Carbon-60 in studies has been shown to be a superconductor. It displaces the magnetic field, it levitates, and it has been proposed to be a substance that will in the future replace plastic because it is so versatile. It is the most common molecule in the universe. And the way it was found was that scientists were looking at the background radiation, and they found that in diffuse interstellar bands, carbon-60 was this most abundant molecule. What it does, it absorbs light, starlight in space, and it emits light. It's an electron donor. It has been shown to exist in more than 174 vibrational states. That is just what has been shown in chemistry labs. It is used in medical nanotechnology. It has extraordinary applications. So there are Nobel Prize winners like Dr. Sant Georgi, I probably butchered that name. He was the one who discovered vitamin C, who knew that life is electric, that life is driven by nothing but electrons, and by the energy that is giving off of electrons when they are cascading down from a high excited level to a lower level. That excitation can be boosted through photons, through light. It's been shown, in fact, in particular Walter Russell discussed it, that any particle can become any other particle according to observation. So an electron going around is a little current, and what drives life is a little current. In 2017, Caltech published a paper that discussed that DNA acts like a wire that is nothing else but a conductor for electrons, and that is the real way of how information is being processed for cell replication. Everything is electrical. So coming back to carbon-60, its medicinal properties, in our understanding of light medicine, are not the specific molecular structure, but its property to give off electron currents. So carbon-60 accumulates in mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cells, and it has antioxidant properties. It's about 10,000 times more potent than vitamin C. It has anti-inflammatory properties, anti-cancer properties. It has been studied in human as well as in mice. In humans, if you take a carbon-60 molecules and shine ultraviolet light on it and you put it into a culture of leukemia cells, it kills chronic leukemia cells in 24 hours, 50% of them. Also, carbon-60 in mice models has been shown to reverse Alzheimer's dementia, the plaque, and heals the brain. It does cross the blood-brain barrier, and it elongates the lifespan in mice. The original French studies showed that mice who were given carbon-60 every 24 days, what happened to them is that the usual lifespan of a mouse about 2 years, and they die of tumors and lung disease. And when they were given this carbon-60 at this very generous intervals, number one, they didn't develop any lung disease, they'd never developed cancer, and at 5 years old, they were still alive, and the researchers killed them so they can publish the study. So then, if we understand the light structures of molecules, we can look at other healing natural compounds and look at what is their molecular structure to determine their light value, and that would give us a way to predict how they're acting in the body. So let's take something like curcumin. I had a dear lady say, well, it sounds like curcumin does just about anything but vacuum your living room floor. That's about right. It's an anti-inflammatory, it treats pain, it boosts brain-derived neurotropic growth factor, which means that it helps you grow new neurons. It lowers the risk of heart disease. It improves your endothelial function. That means, your blood cells. Treats cancer. There's thousands of studies with curcumin and cancer. It reduces your risk of ever developing cancer. Treats depression, reduces arthritis pain, delays aging, but does not vacuum your living room floor. So if you look at the structure, we have hexagonal carbon rings, we have oxygen and hydrogen. Does that sound familiar? Those are the atoms that have the highest light value. So in biophysics, there is a whole area of science that knows that we are organisms of light. And one of the unfortunate things is with our concept of science is that the mathematician, the physicist, the biophysicist, the regular doctor, the acupuncturist, they don't talk to each other. But they could really help each other understand things if we would. So there's one biophysicist, Dr. Mei-Wan Ho, who wrote a beautiful book called The Rainbow and the Worm, and it describes the physics of organisms. And it is absolutely understood that we are conscious beings of light, and that the body electric has a large flow of electric fields in the organs and in the entire organism, and that electrical field is absolutely required to maintain health. And also they know that one single photon can initiate a large cascade of chemical reactions. For example, if a photon hits one cell in the eye of the retina, 100,000 chemical reactions can be set off by this one reaction. Life is all the colors of the rainbows, and that all organisms emit a steady rate from a few photons per cell per day to several hundred photons per organism per second, and that is called bioluminescence. Now, what is important is that in humans, we actually absorb light. Like Dr. Matt was talking about how important it is to eat good food is because the food stores the energy of light that we're ingesting as light beings. When we are out in the sun, we absorb photons through melanin in our skin, and our body actually is able to convert that to energy to utilize in chemical reactions. When we lose photons, it means that the body is in trouble. The disease process is actually initiated by the loss of light in the body. There are studies which have evaluated biophoton emission as a form of an optical biopsy. So particularly in Japan, what they did was they had a study of women, and they were looking at them for the risk of developing cervical cancer, and they were studying biophoton emission, and they were able to predict 6 months before cancer developed which woman was gonna develop it because she had an increased biophoton emission from her womb area. So it is now proposed as a form of, like I said, an optical biopsy and a diagnostic tool. It's been shown, particularly in the work of Professor Alexander Popp in Germany, that the death of an organism is, it starts with a very sharp increase of the loss of light and of biophoton emission with up to 48 hours prior to death, and that has been shown. So this right here is a worm, and that is its colors. It is photographed. So living systems are one coherent photon field which are bound together to living matter. Also, what is known is that organisms act as a liquid crystal. So what that means is that it is a dynamic liquid crystalline form, and that has vibration and coherent motion on every scale. So it is known that water, which is aligned in this structure, which contains all of the proteins, all of the macroglobular structures that we need, as well as the water contained in it, acts like this matrix, and that this fluid and liquid crystallinity of the organism is what allows the rapid information transfer and the function of a coherent whole. Researchers were always asking, it's like, how come that, if you develop a problem in one part of the body, the entire body is completely aware of it. That is in line with quantum physics entanglement, that any particle in the universe knows what's happening to any other particle in the universe at all time. Biophotons and biophonons, to kind of compare what the biophysicists are saying and what Ramtha was saying in his teaching. So excited molecules vibrate into these collective modes of oscillation. And they produce phonons, which are sound waves, and they produce photons, which are light waves. And our biological organism, or any organism for that matter, it is true of all matter, because all matter is light, that music is being made in endless variations, and that the symphony that we are is varied and is being influenced by our moods and our physiology. And that literally science knows that over 73 octaves of the electromagnetic spectrum, 2/3 of them, our music is literally happening. So again, what Ramtha said is all things have a light body, and because it's from light, they descend into mass. And you are a conglomerate of the neighborhood of diversified light whose harmony is you. So the message is exactly the same. So how does an organism age, and particularly a human organism? There are many theories. Are they all right? Yes, they are. So in the anti-aging community, we have cellular aging, we have mitochondria aging, so if the powerhouse of the cell is getting tired and can't produce enough energy, or like Dr. Matt said, if you don't have enough nutrients to make those biochemical reactions happen in a healthy way, if you have the inability to create adequate proteins, if you cannot sense the nutrition that is in your body and you cannot utilize it in the cells, if the stem cells are getting exhausted and cannot create new cells, that's also a cause of aging. Telomere shortening, and we'll go more into that, what that is, brain aging, and the overall agreement now is that all of the mechanisms of aging are caused by chronic inflammation. The difference to the light medicine approach says that the loss of light comes first, and that the loss of light is the cause of inflammation, which then downstream causes all of these macromolecular changes within the human organism. So in telomere research, what are telomeres? They're the protective structures on the ends of chromosomes. And what happens is that in the aging process, there's a progressive shortening of telomeres, and that the short telomeres are associated with all diseases of aging: cardiovascular disease, dementia, diabetes, arthritis, cancer. But what has been found is that aging is an absolutely dynamic process. It used to be thought that once you age, you go downhill and that's it. Well, there is a lot of research now, particularly Elizabeth Blackburn, who also with Elissa Epel won the Nobel Prize on their research on telomeres, which says this, that these telomeres do shorten with each cell division, but how the wearing down process is what really determines how fast cells are aged, and that there are some people who have much more rapid telomere shortening than others, but that the rate can be slowed down, that telomere length can be increased, and that the enzyme that repairs the telomeres, that activity can also be increased. So fact is that science knows that we can slow down and even reverse the aging process. Imagine if we all started working on longevity and anti-aging while we are still young, in our 30s and 40s. If you progressively halt and reverse that aging process, at age 70, you're still going to be at age 45. It is much easier to age reverse someone who's starting early, who's still very functional, who still has a lot of functional cells, than a 95-year-old or someone who's extremely ill, even though that's not impossible, and we're going to show you that. So the shorter the telomeres, and the less telomerase, the more accelerated the aging process. And in these studies, it's been shown that emotions, negative emotions, are absolutely accelerating the aging process. Feeling threatened, hostile, hate. In terms of unsocial neighborhoods, adverse reactions in life events for children. Also people who are thinking that they can really multitask. You know, that is a myth. Wandering mind can, and stress can definitely accelerate your aging process. Anxiety, depression. If you can't sleep at night, which the question really poses itself, does medicine have any idea of why we really can't sleep at night? Maybe we're bothered in our soul, and who's going to answer that question? The longer telomeres and more telomerase, the slonger the aging process. So if we engage in mindfulness techniques and eat good food out of the GoPro growth house, and when children are moving out of neglect, when we begin to focus our mind and then improving our sleep, and when we exercise, then our telomeres can lengthen again. And it's been absolutely shown that what is good for your telomeres is exactly the same thing that will help your brain as well. So brain health is also dependent on all of these factors. Here's a study on anxiety and phobia in women. That really shows, look at the outcome in thousands of women, those women who've had chronic anxiety, that they've had an equivalent of 6 years of premature aging. Think of the absolute outrageous emotions that we have from stress, from disliking someone, etc. You know, it's been said in spiritual tradition, you know, if you judge someone, you know, love your neighbor like yourself, you know, maybe there's more to it than just good brotherly love. But fact is that when you hate, you literally are drinking poison and killing your own body through your emotional reaction. So it's been shown that mindfulness and purpose in life increases telomerase, and I just had to put this in there because in this particular study, they were meditating for 6 hours a day for 3 months. And all I have to say to that, Blue Room sessions are 20 minutes. It has been very well researched. This is a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that lifestyle changes. Change is the key word here. Works within 3 weeks to 4 months. It's been shown that when people are engaging in changing their habits, eating better food, going exercise, and it doesn't really matter what you're doing, the key word here is change. You are disengaging from an old neurological pathway and moving into something different that is breaking up the old routine. So over 500 genes have been found to be affected. That disease-promoting genes were downregulated and health-promoting genes were upregulated. So in essence, the Blue Room affects the light being through light frequency and sound. And in light medicine, we are addressing all levels. Yes, we're addressing the mind. We are, if someone has a serious health issue, addressing that at the level of need there is. If you have a health crisis, you are probably ill-advised to try and meditate while you're having a medical emergency. You want to take care of that emergency and keep the organism alive to proceed with your healing journey. So the Blue Room achieves what Jay-Z has called stasis, and what that means, it's a state of mindful detachment. So detaching from those negative emotions and allowing that crystalline structure of the body to create a state of coherence, of harmony, so that now the body can heal, can absorb light, and can repair itself. So detachment creates this oneness of body, mind, and spirit. There's no more chatter, and it allows that peace that can be utilized then from by the body to repair itself. So now we're progressing into an area of this discussion which is truly extraordinary. The inventor of the Blue Room is absolutely an amazing mind, and she's also the visionary for the Mercy Blu Room program. She was the one who started experimenting with the first peptide called body-protecting compound, and I didn't know anything about peptide at that time, and then Dr. Matt, after that, started sending emails about, oh, and here's epitalon, and here's thymoglobulin, here's this, and here's that, and it was like a whole new world opened up of possibilities. So Jay-Z herself, in healing her maladies, did Blue Room sessions every other night. And she had posted on Facebook on April 1st this quote. She said, "I am the inventor of our Blue Room. I know about our body electric, our light, and our minds not only create diseasement, but cures them as well." So imagine what she knows with what I talked about earlier, to be able to develop such an extraordinary machine. So she wanted you to know about the peptides that she was using. What are peptides? They are short-chain amino acids. In Russia, in the Cold War, there was a Professor Kavinson who was told by the military to find a way to reverse the age of soldiers so that they could serve longer in submarines and in stressful situations. And the goal of this mission was to prolong the ability to work, to extend life force and work life. And so these peptides were developed extremely specific, kind of like a key going into a lock, and they were able to reverse either the age of specific organ system or the hormonal superregulators. So this is really nanotechnology. It happens at extremely small atomic sizes, and to date, this is a booming healthcare market. More than 7,000 peptides have been isolated. Jay-Z has used a wide variety of peptides in her healing. So for her knee arthritis, she found this body-protecting compound. It's been shown to have amazing healing properties for tendons, for cartilage. She was using several peptides for heart and blood vessel health, which are Ventford, Vesigen, Revilab. There were peptides for superregulation of the pineal gland, some for telomere lengthening. Thymidine, Dr. Martinez talked about that in terms of reversing the age of the thymus gland and overall age of the physical body. Epithalon was one of the first peptides that was synthesized in the Russian research. It was combined with thymidine, and it was used to reverse the age of aging humans. It does increase telomere length, but it has a wide variety of possibilities, including anti-cancer properties. It enhances pancreatic function, so it's been shown to reverse diabetes. What was done in over 60-year-olds was they were given this epithalon and thymidine at an interval every 6 months for 5 days. And then after 3 years, they were given another refresher every couple years. And after 12 years, the cardiovascular mortality in the group that received epithalon and thymidine went down by 50%. The functional age was reversed back by more than 4 years. Their heart pump function, the muscle contractility of their hearts was much improved. It lowered cholesterol, it lowered blood pressure, it lowered blood sugar. So epithalon is a peptide that is huge in anti-aging medicine. GH copper is another anti-aging peptide that's now used for reversing the age of collagen. It's used in skin product, but it's also been shown to reverse gene health in 30% of our genes back to health. So it is pretty extraordinary master key of the genetic code. So Jay-Z, if you see here, she had chronic kidney disease from high blood pressure. That was documented in 2014, 2016. So when the GFR, which is the glomerular filtration rate, goes below 60, we're already at stage 3 kidney disease. A normal young kidney filters about 150 cc's per minute. And that GFR number says, okay, she was filtering at 52 cc's per minute. So one day she just said, yeah, I'm going to heal this. And a couple months later she says, I healed it, get another blood test. And so you see the June 2018 numbers, which show normal kidney function. Jay-Z had, in 2010, an echocardiogram, an ultrasound of the heart, and her unique physiology in channeling Ramtha has been evaluated in studies years ago where many researchers came and found these extraordinary findings, including that during channeling sessions, her heart rate goes up to 100 beats a minute and is sustained there, which a normal human being would go into cardiac arrest. Extremely high blood pressures that are maintained in this physiology. So in the echocardiogram report in 2010, it did show a heart muscle thickening, which she always said that, she has an athlete's heart, no wonder. But a preserved pump function at 64%. But one of the findings that there was that it said that the heart muscle had reduced diastolic compliance. So what that means is the heart pumps out, but then it has to relax the muscle so that the blood can flow in and refill up for the next pump. So the relaxation phase was impaired. This mechanism can cause congestive heart failure as it progresses because of the impaired filling ability of the heart muscle. So you see that Jay-Z had another echocardiogram in June of 2018, which showed that the heart pump function continued to be preserved, which is unusual over the course of 8 years in somebody with maintained high blood pressures under extreme stress. Usually the heart disease progresses, but that the impaired relaxation, there was no mention of it, meaning that there wasn't any problems in 2018. Jay-Z Knight in 2015 underwent a surgery and had a cardiac arrest. And she told the doctors that, oh, don't worry about it, I do this all the time. So she didn't have any further medical workup for the incident or why it happened. She, in 2018, went to see her cardiologist, and at that time did a CT scan that evaluated the calcifications in her heart. And what that showed was that the right coronary artery, which gives the blood supply to the entire back wall of the heart, had severe disease at the 90th percentile for her age. So this is a finding that's extremely concerning, that artery is blocked, severely blocked. So in preparation for her surgery on her carotids, it was recommended, because of this history in 2015 of cardiac arrest during anesthesia, that she undergo a nuclear stress test. So what that does is it actually stresses the heart to see whether or not the heart muscle is getting enough blood through that potentially blocked artery. So that test was the first indication to me that kind of led me to believe that there's something really extraordinary going on with this entity. So the electrocardiogram portion of the test was actually positive for ischemia, meaning positive for abnormal blood flow. But her perfusion scan was normal. So it said that she does not have a blockage. So the pump function was normal at that time. And she had sent an email that says, explain what that means to me. And so I said, you don't have a blockage. So this is so significant. I mean, the right coronary artery, the heart attacks from that are substantial. I just want to show you. So what we're talking about, oops, excuse me. let me, I wanted to show you this. I pushed the wrong button, right here. I mean, there's only two main arteries, okay? This is the left, and this is the right cornea artery, 90% blockage, pretty scary thing. Okay, so she healed that too. J.Z. Knight's brain is not just a miracle, but a mystery. I did write a report, it's 22 pages, that was posted on Facebook about all of the miracles that she has produced in the last 22 years and that have been documented about her, about Ramtha. You know, there's the DNA testing that showed that there are two different entities, and now this. To me, her brain findings were just jaw-dropping. And I think, I'm not sure how many times I used the word miracle in that report. So, the normal brain blood supply, let's look at what is normal. So, there's 4 major arteries going to the brain. These are the carotid arteries, and then you have the vertebral arteries in the back, okay, left and right. They go into a circle of Willis, right here, and then off that circle are 3 arteries. The anterior artery supplies the front part of the brain, the middle cerebral artery, the middle part of the brain, and the posterior one, the back part of the brain, okay? So, Jay-Z in 2010 had an MR angiogram. An MR angiogram is an MRI that looks at blood vessel supply of the brain. She did not remember she had that test and had no idea about these findings. So when I got her medical records, I had asked her, did you know about this? No. So what it showed was that her internal right carotid artery was already at that time about 40% blocked. The left carotid artery, less than 40% blocked. The left vertebral artery was 50% blocked, so the blood supply to the back part of the brain, 50% blocked. The middle cerebral artery, which is in the brain, in 2010 was blocked 60%. And then the posterior cerebral artery, less than 50%. So there's already pretty significant arteriosclerosis, both in the neck arteries as well as the brain arteries. So in 2018, she had a carotid ultrasound, so that only looks at the arteries in the neck. But the progression on the right side of the carotid artery went from less than 40 to 70 to 95%. So she was critically blocked on the right side. You see that? The left carotid went from less than 40% to 50 to 69% blocked. Okay? And then the left vertebral, so left is right here, the back artery that used to be 50% blocked, now is flowing backwards. So what happens is that when you develop arteriosclerosis in your arm and you move your arm, there is a collateral flow that steals blood from your brain. So her left posterior vertebral is not even going to the brain, it's going backwards. And then the other ones we are not sure about because she didn't have a follow-up MRI angiogram of her brain. But let's look at, if we assume that we know that she was less than 40 and she went up to 95% blockage, then potentially we could say in that artery that there was a 30 to 55% increase in occlusion. That's a fact, right? Okay. We were on the left side less than 40, so we have anywhere between 10 to 29% increase. All right, so this thing definitely got worse, for 50% going backwards. So what would happen to this artery, the left middle cerebral artery that was already 60% blocked, if it was going to increase in occlusion at any of those rates? Do you agree with me that we could get somewhere up to 90% plus in blockage? Potentially, yes. How about the posterior left cerebral, who was less than 50%? If we have a progression anywhere here, 29%, maybe up to 55%, could the posterior cerebral be blocked up to 90%? Yes. Okay. So what does that look like here? Let's just kind of go through that because I want you to wrap your mind around this. So in 2010, 40% blockage here, so only 60% blood flow through this one. 40% blockage here. We've had over here, the middle cerebral was 60% blocked and the posterior cerebral less than 50. Follow me? And the left vertebral was 50% blocked. Got it? 2018. Let's just look at how much blood is flowing through the neck to the brain. This one, critically blocked, less than 5%. This one, maybe 30% of what's supposed to be there, okay? This one is flowing backwards. She's got one good artery. Do you see that? One good artery, okay. So the left hemisphere, the left middle cerebral is potentially 90% blocked and the posterior cerebral 90% blocked. The left side of the brain is not getting any blood. And the right side is only being, the blood supply is only through this one artery. You see that? Okay. So how much blood supply does the left middle cerebral artery provide? This entire area. That's half her brain. The posterior cerebral, which is also blocked, no blood supply. You see that? So the anterior cerebral may get a little. What are the neurological functions that are in that area of the brain? Eye movement, speech, intellect, self-control, motor skills development, sensation, language, vision, memory. You've heard that I've worked in nursing homes, people who have strokes, who have embolic strokes to the middle cerebral artery. They can't talk, they can't eat, they're paralyzed, they are unable to produce words or understand words. They have to be fed, they are maximum assist, and they are not inventors of blue rooms. So, what does this mean? My question is this: what does a living legend look like? What part of the brain does J.Z. Knight operate from? And what level of control can a spiritual being have over a body? What kind of spiritual being has control over life and death? If there was a human being who can live as such a visionary genius without adequate blood supply to the brain, what do we really know about the potential of a divine human being? What does that do to our current view of science? And this case study, does that prove that light medicine is spiritual? Everyone has the right to their own opinion. Based on the knowledge I have as a medical doctor and an initiate in the school, I have two conclusions. Number one, J.Z. Knight is one of the greatest geniuses of our time because she is understanding a science that can reverse engineer matter back to its original light form and invent a blue room that heals the mind of light beings. This science is not known in this world, and it is hundreds, if not thousands of years advanced of this time in terms of the scientific ability, the mathematics, that they have not yet been written. Geniuses like Tesla and Walter Russell could understand the blue room. That's number one. Number two is that Ramtha School of Enlightenment has produced the first human being that is a true master, and that is proof. The Mercy Blu Room program is J.Z. Knight's mind. Her mind is a mind of unconditional love. Whoever needs help can come. She pays for the Blue Room session, she pays for the medicine, any disease. She does not care about all the signs I talked to you about. The only thing she cares about is that you go in the Blue Room and get healed. She is the sponsor and the visionary, and she's the guide for us physicians, both Dr. Matt and myself. She is the one who is telling us, go research this, go do this, for this person, do this. She has her mind on her fokies. The admission criteria for the Mercy Blu Room program are severe medical disease, as well as financial need. For a period of time, the manager, Terry Stewart, and myself, we decided to focus on the sickest of the sick, because we thought that if we can prove that we can help those who modern medicine can no longer help and heal, then we can heal everything in between. The criteria are also monthly checkups and for monitoring with the physician, which the majority of the patients were established with me in my practice. There's informed consent, as well as novel combination therapies, and ongoing innovation. The treatment protocols continuously change based on the research input, either from J.Z., Dr. Matt would send a solution, myself would come up with something, and there's always an ongoing drive to find something different and new to help those people. And then there was also education for those who were in the program to inspire them to accept the healing that can come their way, to understand the mind causality, and that changing their mind is what will allow the healing, and to remind them of self-correction. The Mercy Blu Room Cancer Program used a variety of natural compounds. One was Iscador, which was given either orally or as an injectable, which is mistletoe extract. It is the most common chemotherapeutic agent used in Europe. Carbon-60, I talked about earlier. The peptides, epithalon has been shown to decrease angiogenesis, which means blood supply to tumors. GH copper has anti-cancer properties. Cardiogen, which is a heart peptide, also in sarcoma and other solid tumors, has been shown to inhibit the growth of tumors. Mitochondrial optimization is much of what Dr. Matt talked about, which is that if we don't have the nutrition for the power structure of the cell to work, we can't initiate the healing process. Vitamin supplementation. In older people, they are not able to adequately produce vitamin D3 through the exposure of sunlight, even in the blue room. So we have to measure those levels, and they're not able to absorb it well. So we are striving for replacement therapies, sometimes in extremely high doses to reach blood levels greater than 75. Vitamin D has been clearly shown to have anti-cancer properties, and it is also said that most of the boom of chronic diseases in our society have occurred because 80% of the population is deficient in vitamin D3. Other anti-cancer compounds were found based on their light value. Remember the structure of the atoms that we're talking about, the carbon rings, etc. There's a number of Chinese herbal products, etc., that have been used for anti-aging and healing purposes for a long time. Well, guess what? They all fit the ticket of, high electrical conductivity. Magnolia bark, curcumin. Melatonin in high doses in Europe is used for cancer treatment. Senolytics is a group of compounds that are part of things called tocopherols. So those are like fisetin. It is found in strawberries. And what it does, it removes aging cells from the body. It's been shown in anti-aging research that fat cells or other immune cells that are aging, they do tell other surrounding cells to also age. And if you remove them, that cytokine expression doesn't occur. And in mice, there's a substantial improvement in longevity. So in very old mice, if you give them fisetin, their projected lifespan was extended by 50%. So these senolytics are also photosensitizers. So in the Blue Room, we use molecules because we are understanding how light is chemically interacting with them in the body to do certain things. And then in the cancer treatment program, all of the participants went to the Blue Room 3 times a week, and self-correction and mindfulness techniques that they were learning at the school were absolutely encouraged. So for people who are concerned about, people who decide to treat cancer by natural means, there are studies in Australia and the United States which show that the overall contribution of cytotoxic chemotherapy on the 5-year survival in Australia and the United States was 2.1%. So there are people who want to go a different route. Sometimes people are endeavoring to heal themselves in natural ways, and they are not taking into account all of the options that are there. Obviously, I'm traditionally trained. Before someone has a big ulcerative cancer lesion, I would absolutely recommend surgery. And if natural treatments aren't working, then I say you should go save your life and do this operation or do whatever needs to be done so that your life can be spared. Photo repair in cancer has been studied by, again, Dr. Alexander Popp, who was an icon in bioluminescence. And it's a process in which it's been shown that if you destroy a cell through UV light, even its DNA, 99% of that cell, and then you shine more light on it but at a lower intensity, the cell can actually be regrown without its DNA being there. So that mechanism is called photorepair. And it's been shown that cancer cells, if you shine light on them, they start to scramble light, and that mechanism doesn't work, the repair mechanism of light. But Iscador, which is mistletoe extract, actually allows the emission of light to go through and allows the mechanism of photorepair to happen, which is one of the reasons why we're using it in conjunction with the Blue Room. So photodynamic cancer treatment is an extremely exciting new area of cancer treatment that is being evaluated at many new cancer centers. So it uses a drug and a particular type of light. So when the photosensitizers, which can be any type of compound, it can be fisetin, it can be other like dyes, Bengal rose is one of them, when they are exposed to a specific wavelength in the body, they actually produce a form of oxygen that kills the cancer cells. So you can shine a laser light onto a tumor that has absorbed this photosensitizers, and it can kill tumor cells extremely rapidly. And so each photosensitizer is activated by a certain frequency of light. In the Blue Room, we take advantage of the UV light, which in and itself has anti-cancer properties. Also, we've been working with 4-strand DNA. The first time I heard that humans have 4 strands of DNA was at Ramtha School of Enlightenment. And Ramtha asked, how many strands of DNA do humans have? And of course, I answered 2. That's what I learned in medical school. But in 2013, after Ramtha talked about 4-strand DNA, it was actually discovered that we have 4. And that these quadruplexes of this 4-strand DNA, it is a regulatory mechanism on our genetic code that provides a switch. And that telomeres actually are regulated by this 4-strand DNA. And certain senolytics, again fisetin, they can stabilize that complex and allow the genetic code to be read, subsequent to that. So working with 4-strand DNA is an exciting area of research in anti-cancer. Viruses are regulated by this. HIV is, herpes virus, it is antibacterial. It has antibacterial applications, for example, in Lyme disease, and it can be a target for chronic diseases. So we've been using that in the Mercy Blu Room program. So let's look at the cancer participants. As you can see, we have a wide variety of cancer, and these are people who are at extremely advanced stages, many of them stage 4 cancer with heavy tumor burden. They either have undergone conventional treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, or not, but were at a point where they were seeking more help or a different kind of help. We've had prostate cancers, lung cancer, colon cancer, very large tumor burden, and cervical cancer in our program. So the results are this. So in case 1, you see this particular case of stage 4 with metastasis to the lungs. There were definitely a quality of life improvement. And what is really interesting, in this advanced stage, when you have 8 months follow-up, or now it is a year follow-up, with no disease progression, that's already extremely positive, because those stage 4 people, they would have progressed and gotten worse over time. We have another stage 4 with metastasis to the bone, extremely extensive tumor burden, and much improvement in quality of life to the degree that these people are very functional. The tumor markers actually decreased from 74 to 47. And what was interesting about this case was that this individual had changed from, depression to real joy, and then there was a real frustration in life that occurred for over 2 months, and then the tumor markers started going up. And the only thing that changed was that stressor, and that just shows you how powerful the mind is. What was also interesting was that this individual, due to mastectomy, had always severe lymphedema, and that was completely, very much improved with good mobility and function of the hand. So the fact that there was an improvement in quality of life is very significant. The next case, bilateral breast cancer, no metastasis is incorrect. Actually, there was a lung nodule, and the metastatic cancer markers were normal. Had a follow-up CT scan just last week. The nodule is decreased in size, no progression in the breast cancer, both breasts. We've had other cancers that had dropped out. One stage 4 patient with metastatic disease to the bones and to the lungs achieved a complete remission with our program. She had improved quality of life, and the PET scan, whole body PET scan, showed no metastatic disease in the lungs and femur, and currently tumor-free. We had 2 prostate cancer patients in our program. One prostate cancer was localized without metastatic disease, and that individual also achieved complete remission. On prostate biopsy, no cancer shown. We had one individual who came very late and is deceased, but did achieve improved quality of life in the last days. Also, we've had colon cancer with much improved, very rapid post-surgical recovery, and then colon cancer with extremely large tumor burden, larger than football size. That individual is currently undergoing a very novel peptide treatment and is improving, and hospice has never seen a case like this that is getting better. So more to come on that. We've had one individual with cervical cancer who did worsen during the program, decided to proceed with chemotherapy and radiation, but was continuing the Blue Room treatments through the chemo and radiation, and felt that the only way that the individual was able to make it through that was with such very mild symptoms was because of the ongoing Blue Room treatment. And then we had another cervical cancer case with improved quality of life, very good recovery. So conclusion so far on the cancer treatment program is that the combination therapy improves quality of life in all cases. There was substantially decreased anxiety and improved energy. Dealing with the mental aspect of having cancer and advanced cancer and the fear of death, it was a huge component in this program and required a lot of encouragement. And the Blue Room was really, really integral to allow people to deal with that fear. It is noted that the healing journey is completely individual, and also that the medical management of these cases was very complex. They did have monthly follow-ups, sometimes more. There were adverse reactions to the treatments like Iscador. We've had very severe side effects in one case with a rash that required steroid treatment. So my point about that is that if there are clinicians who are using combination therapy with the Blue Room, they must be prepared to deal with the side effects and with the complexity of patient care in order to make this a safe standard. It is not without risk and not without side effects, and we need to be aware of that. 100% of participants achieved improvement in quality of life. That is extraordinary result given the severity of disease that these patients had. 2 out of 9 achieved complete remission. That's 22%. And I already told you about the couple other cases. The Mercy Blu Room heart healing program had very complex heart patients. We had advanced congestive heart failure up to heart transplant candidates. Cardiac arrest survivors, stroke survivors, people with acute severe heart attacks, chronic kidney disease, stage 3 up to dialysis, and chronic high blood pressure and atrial fibrillation. In the heart failure treatment, we did use a combination of multiple peptides. Epithalon has been shown to improve cardiac pump function and helps repair the heart muscles. There are other oral peptides that were given, like Cardiogen, Vesigen, Ventfort, Revilab, and the GHK copper for overall anti-aging purposes. High-dose CoQ10 is extremely important. That is part of the mitochondrial Krebs cycle, the way that the cells make energy. A cardiac cell has more than 5,000 mitochondria, and to make them work well, we absolutely need to give it all of the nutrients, like Dr. Matt said, to function well. Vitamin D, we worked on getting optimum levels. We stopped statins. Statin drugs have been shown to interfere with mitochondrial health and actually promote arteriosclerosis and congestive heart failure. And we used other anti-arteriosclerosis treatments like the curcumin and other compounds to decrease inflammation. It's been really shown and established the reason for arteriosclerosis is not high cholesterol, it is inflammation that then will deposit the cholesterol plaques into the arteries. So if somebody has low inflammation but high cholesterol, they may never develop cardiovascular disease. And it's important to know on an individual patient basis, how are we to treat that and where are they at in terms of their inflammatory status. Blue Room twice a week, and very close monthly follow-up for medication management. And then the tapering of the cardiac medication, again, was very important. So looking at the patient population, again, I told you, very sick. People always get scared when they hear this cancer word, but I can tell you that congestive heart failure with an ejection fraction of 17%, when normal is around 60, 65%, that's very advanced heart disease with very high risk of sudden cardiac death. So we have had patients, again, with previous cardiac arrests. 3 of them had died and come back. And we've had people who have an implanted defibrillator because of the risk of cardiac death. So you can see that the heart pump function anywhere from 17% to the low 20s. At 19%, we've had someone with an LVAD machine, which is an artificial heart pump because their heart alone was unable to pump anymore. We've had someone who had a heart aneurysm with an actual blood clot in a very dangerous situation, and congestive heart failure. A patient who not only has congestive heart failure but is also on dialysis. That's a very complex situation, and status valve replacement and with pacemakers. So all of these people were treated with medications, and I would not accept anyone who just wanted to stop their drugs. I have seen such cases. I have seen where people went into the Blue Room and they said, okay, I had 5 sessions, I'm healed, and they stopped all their heart meds, and a week later ended up in the hospital with strokes and heart attacks. More than one time I've seen that. So the idea of this treatment program is that we keep you alive with all measures, all tools that we can, while you are healing yourself, and then we're going to taper your drugs. So the outcomes of the program showed this. Ejection fraction 17%, improved to 20-25%, modest improvement. But in terms of quality of life, much improved. No symptoms of congestive heart failure, no shortness of breath, very good energy, which is unheard of at such a low pump function. Ejection fraction 27%. This individual had a defibrillator. The repeat echocardiogram remained stable, but this individual was only in the program for about 3 months. Healing times are absolutely individual. You just don't know when somebody is getting their breakthrough, and all of a sudden something switches. And this individual has been doing extremely well, is doing symptomatically excellent. You would never tell that they have a heart problem. This particular case, the initial ejection fraction was 21%. This is a cardiac arrest survivor. Follow-up echocardiogram, 56%. Symptomatically, the doing absolutely excellent. So here's where the complexity of medical management comes in. If your heart pump function all of a sudden goes from 21% to 56%, and you're on all of those drugs that are diuresing you and lowering your blood pressure, that can lead to a crisis. We had one patient actually be hospitalized because the heart pump function went from 19 to 65%, and the blood pressure dropped, and she was hospitalized. So the healing with the peptides in a short period of time really required sometimes very rapid follow-up and then lowering of the blood pressure medication in a fast way to keep these people safe. So we did that, and medications were substantially decreased, and the individual's doing much, much better. We have here ejection fraction 27% and chronic kidney disease stage 4 improvement to 47%. That's extraordinary. This individual has had this ejection fraction for more than 6 years, and nothing helped before. So excellent result. Clinically, no more shortness of breath, energy is better, the individual is exercising, joyful, ready to tackle life. Still working on the kidneys. This individual was an amazing healing. The pump function was impaired on both the left heart and the right heart. The left side of the heart healed from 19% to 65%. The right side, unfortunately, did not heal, and the individual went on for a cardiac transplant. Ejection fraction here, 40%. The echocardiogram is still outstanding, but the symptoms are excellent. Quality of life, fantastic. We have another case, ejection fraction 40% with an individual with chronic high blood pressure for more than 25 years and atrial fibrillation. Pump function improved to 65%. Medication was decreased. This individual was on 200 milligrams of this drug metoprolol, and we just, within weeks, we had to keep lowering because the blood pressure was dropping, particularly after epithalon. And is currently maintained excellently on 12.5 milligrams of metoprolol, normal pump function. This individual, pump function improvement from 35% to 44% due to the dialysis and the kidney function issues. Still having problems, but working on it. She always says she wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the Blue Room. This individual with ejection fraction of 50% has had previous fluctuation in lower, but had a lot of issues with the atrial fibrillation, underwent procedures for that. The atrial fibrillation had calmed down so much that this person went from basically being bedbound and not being able to do anything due to such severe decreases in energy to working 10 hours a day and, you know, going up flights of stairs. And she's still seeing me and she's just like, she's fine. Graduate of Mercy Blu. Conclusion so far. The combination therapy improved quality of life and mood. And just like Dr. Matt said, you know, can people die of a broken heart? Absolutely. The cardiac arrest survivors all talked about how prior to their death experience, they were in extreme distress. They had their hearts broken. They were depressed, and they died. And they got another chance, and all of those are doing very, very well. So given the severity, again, of the disease that was present in this group, the outcome is extraordinary. The symptom improvement substantial to help people to have increased quality of life and less shortness of breath with such severe diseases is amazing. The pump function improved and normalized in 6 out of 8 people who had the echocardiogram, so that's a 75% response rate. I was never able to accomplish something like that when I was just doing regular medicine. And again, the improvement in quality of life, extraordinary. So you can see, you know, also Jay-Z Knight's mind manifesting in amazing ways. Other Mercy Blu Room healings, we've had a case of an individual who had extensive blood clots in the entire left leg up to the pelvic area, into the abdomen, life-threatening situation, and went on blood thinners, did every other day Blue Room treatment, and with senolytics, with other natural compounds that were helping to dissolve the blood clots, with focus, with all of these approaches, had a repeat ultrasound, and the entire blood clots in the leg dissolved. It's normal. There's no evidence that there was a blood clot. There's still a little bit of clots in the pelvic area, but that will be healed too. Given that blood thinners do not dissolve blood clot, they only inhibit the progression of blood clots. The normalization, again, in 20 years of practice, I've not seen that. I would do follow-up scans like 6 months later, and you can still see the scar of the fibrin clot in the veins after 6 months. So that's an extraordinary result here. We've had improvement in PTSD and anxiety, pain relief for osteoarthritis, some remarkable results, substantial stress reduction, one individual with much improved mobility and less pain after a severe motor vehicle accident with multiple fractures. And then we've had some short-timers who would come in for tune-ups. Let's say, you know, the surgeon won't do surgery because of severe COPD. We treated with peptides with Mercy Blu Room for a month, and they were cleared for surgery and went on their way. So that was very useful for preoperative management. Safety considerations, I was kind of interspersing some of these comments. So one of the concerns is, people want to heal themselves with their mind, but they don't understand the concept of change. So, and have unrealistic expectations. It's, just because you say, I'm healed, and that's it, and you're not really applying your mind to make meaningful changes in your life, doesn't mean that that miracle is coming your way. I mean, these individuals were applying the mindful techniques that they had learned at this school. And so to have unrealistic expectations and sort of say, okay, where's my miracle? Or to have very slight attitudes about the Blue Room all of a sudden, oh, it doesn't really do anything. Well, you're using it for your healing, and your mind is creating a reality. You have just cut yourself off from possibility. And so it is extremely important to understand that in light medicine, self-responsibility is everything. And that, this nosedive of, let's say, a depression episode or whatever there is in terms of going back in previous attitudes will immediately reflect itself in a nosedive in overall health. It's a two-edged sword, this whole business of I'm creating reality. The abrupt stopping of prescription medications can result in health crisis. So I told you about that there were side effects. There were people who had abrupt healings and were over-medicated. I do not recommend with severely ill people that they just go out there and buy a bunch of peptides and that could be dangerous. So you want to be under the care of a qualified practitioner to be able to monitor you and help you on this journey. And then again, the mindfulness aspect of this journey, it's not the Blue Room that's not working. It is we need to change and really understand what that means. Therapy needs to be adjusted. So what works for one person does not work for the other. There's different sensitivities to medications, even to peptides. I have people who have healings on 3 drops of Iscador a day, and others on 20 milligrams of injections of Iscador. There's a wide variety of dose adjustments that are absolutely unique and that need to be taken into consideration. So light medicine summary, Blue Room induces stasis, harmony, and detachment. And if the individual can maintain that detachment, then as you understand, the crystalline structure of the body can, do its healing. The light within you can heal you when we are detached. And that the healing of very severe diseases can be achieved with this multifaceted approach, addressing body, emotions, and spirit, and that Blue Room can be used with many combination treatments. There is more research to come. Dr. Matt, Jay-Z, myself, we're always coming up with something different. So Blue Room contacts, to contact your local Blue Rooms, you have received the blueroom.com website. If you would like to apply for the Yelm Mercy Blu Room contact, please contact Terry Stewart at shivablue.com. She's the manager of the program. And Mercy Blu also accepts donations. So if you are inclined to help your fellow human beings who are sometimes in dire straits and financial need. Many do not have health insurance. Many don't have the money to buy food. So any help is appreciated, and that can also be facilitated through Terry Stewart's. Through the inspiration of J.Z. Knight and Ramtha and this Mercy Blu Room program, I have decided to change course in my life and leave corporate medicine. And so AM Medical, which is my new office, will have grand opening on May 13th. We will offer services of internal medicine and integrative medicine, anything from IV therapy, peptide therapy, hyperbaric oxygen. In regards to peptides, the laws in the United States, for those of you who are practitioners, peptides fall under the prescription requirement and sterile compounding laws. So the International Peptide Society on their website lists those pharmacies that one can work with, and you can write an individual prescription for your patient for them to compound the peptides and then send them to you. That is the legal way to prescribe peptides and use peptides. Oral peptides fall under vitamins and supplements in the United States, and there are many places where individuals can buy them yourself. Again, if you have chronic medical diseases, you may want to be careful and work with a health practitioner. Integrative cancer therapy, that's definitely a passion of mine, and there are many new peptides that can be utilized for that. Longevity and anti-aging, we can start reversing your age in your 30s and your 40s, because the sooner you start, the younger you will be when you're older. We will offer ANS testing. Autonomic nervous system testing is an absolute innovative technology. It was developed through Harvard and MIT. It tests for the innervation of the cardiovascular structure. It can predict how much arteriosclerosis you do already have in your body. As you see with regular medicine, by the time a patient has chest pain and they come to the doctor and we do a stress test, the arteries are already blocked 70-90%. With the ANS, we can see the level of arteriosclerosis way earlier and start reversing it. It tests for, I can talk about the innervation of the pancreas, and it allows the prediction of the development of diabetes before your blood sugars ever go up. How does your liver do? How does your overall stress resilience in your body occur? And it gives a very detailed report on the health status of an individual, which is way beyond what lab tests can do. And when we have that information, then we can treat you, reverse the issues before they manifest in your body, and then do the follow-up test and show you're clear. So that's a very exciting technology that we'll be offering. Light medicine collaboration with Blue Rooms. So I will be doing, we will have telemedicine consultations. The laws are very strict about telemedicine, which means that a provider can only provide telemedicine consultations for patients in which the provider is licensed, so that would be Washington State. We will provide telemedicine consultations for international people who are interested in coming to Yelm for treatment. And so they can schedule a telehealth appointment, discuss their case, see if it is feasible to get cancer treatment in Yelm, so that can be done. For contact, admin@ammedicalmd.com, and there's the phone number. There's also a flyer and business cards. AM Medical will have a foundation also for donations for Mercy Blu Room treatment to get treatment at the office. Many of the Mercy Blu Room patients, again, do not have insurance, so being able to do things like IV therapy or injection peptide therapy, with a compounding pharmacy, I have access to more than 50 peptides. So those kinds of treatments, to be able to offer that to Mercy Blu Room patients, we do have a foundation. That's the same contact address. I'd like to end with a recommendation. I am a student at Ramtha School of Enlightenment. It's the greatest academy of mind in the world. The knowledge that I have received here, I've found nowhere else. If you've heard anything but greatness from the school, that's just fake news. The solution to that is to change the channel. I want to tell you that Jay-Z Knight and Ramtha are the real thing. The science is solid. The proof is solid. And where we go one, we go all has a different meaning in the oneness of light, because if we have such an extraordinary human being that paves the path for all of us, and all of these amazing beings that have healed themselves, that have walked away from death's door and healed themselves, what can you do if you would only have the knowledge of light? I thank you, and behold God.
Thank you both. And thanks to all of you who participated here today in audience, to all of you who participated in the live stream, to all of you in the future now watching this recording in your language, in your country, in your time zone. You are part of the future already, and we're so happy to have you join us. Good evening. Thank you again.